housing market. Get the latest insights right here.
Welcome back to Indy Housing Market. I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker.
I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realty Group and FC Tucker. And today we are so honored to have Brad Coffing from MIBOR, the Director of Housing Insights, but I'm just going to call him the Master of Stats.
I want to call him the Wizard.
The Wizard of
Yeah.
Stats.
I've been called a lot of things, so
Not any of those. though. Not any of those. Now,
Brad is the one that knows everything with stats. Like we do our stats at the end of the podcast, nothing like what he's going to give us today. So reason we wanted to have him is, of course, it's the end of the 6 months has already went by for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just see where we are now compared to maybe last year, compared to January. And he's got it all in front of him.
and we tend to be like way more hyper-focused. We just specific. We've tried it before to do more. There's just too much. I mean, you
There's
have
a
a
lot.
full-time position to do this. Like we're just idiots who volunteer to get on here. But like, and just to do what we do is a lot. And it is, 5 cities, let alone all the counties that are affiliated with MIBOR. And then just going into Indianapolis itself is probably, I mean, you've probably played around with it. I mean, I bet I have
How many MIBOR
8
codes
different.
are in Marion?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How many
goodness.
townships? Yeah, that's
Well,
insane.
there's 9 townships, but then there's also the carve-outs for Beach Grove,
Yep.
Speedway, and then downtown core is in the 4 quadrants. Yeah.
But the reason we feel this is important, and why we do stats all the time is, and one of the things since starting the podcast, you and I have said many times, is having stats information when you go to talk to the public, your listings, your buyers, or everything, knowing what you know is out there
Right.
is very important. So we think that the information you have
It helps
can give
ground
us-
my opinions because
because
I
they're
can
no longer
be
opinions.
right because I can be driven by the feel and the emotion of the market and the buyers and the sellers, and like the stats have helped me stay grounded in reality of what's really going on versus what's being felt. And I think you know better than anybody, like what's being felt is not always reflective of the data, and sometimes it is.
It's a two-way street, though, too. So I see my role as kind of describing climate.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the weather. Like,
Yeah,
is it going to
yeah.
rain today? You know, and those are very useful in their own way. But there are times where I call you guys at
Yeah.
the end of a month,
Like, what are you
"Whoa,
seeing?"
Hey, what is going on? And like, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm seeing show up with the data. But what are you seeing with clients? Like, what's the vibe? What's going on? And a lot of times that, we talk for 10 minutes and then we end up connecting. Like, oh, okay,
Where's
now
the
these
disconnect
stories,
on it?
Now these stories line up, and now this makes sense. And
I'm glad we're right next to the brand new fire department, by the way. Our
I'm glad we have
municipalities
them.
at work.
I'm glad we have them.
Yeah. No, but to your point, and also the interesting thing is there's a lag sometimes too. And so we have a little bit more luxury to deep dive on some things sometimes.
You're on the front end of it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Because
Definitely.
like I can tell you ahead of time that, hey, I'm low on buyers right now. Or, hey, I have buyers, but they're being very, very reserved, and we're doing multiple showings, and we're coming back and looking at things. And like that is a piece of the market that can't be quantified
Right.
based on the data, right?
Absolutely.
And I was talking to another added piece to this is the lenders, right? And so like
Yeah, hearing from them
Yeah,
is
they
very
see a
interesting.
lot of interesting.
right. So like I can remember a couple of weeks ago because I was talking about like what's going on in the market. And, sometimes I'll call a lender and they're saying we're doing a lot of polls, but we're not putting a lot basically credit polls or whatever. And they're doing a lot of pre-quals, but they are not getting a lot under contract.
Yeah, they're
but,
ahead of you down that line. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, they're way ahead of us. Sometimes by like
Right.
2 or 3 months.
Right.
Right.
And then, but when I was talking to lenders last month, they're like, worst month we've seen in years.
Yeah.
Right. And then also, I can tell you sometimes ahead of time where like, we tend to be way ahead of the curve on listings as well, because I'm usually finding out about a listing sometimes only like a couple weeks in advance, but usually 2 to 3 months in advance.
Yeah.
Right. And so like when you start to pull all of us together, you get a better climate, right, of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
It's an interesting time, isn't it?
It
so
is.
let's get caught up on kind of where we are, what we thought
For the year,
what we
right,
thought
yeah.
the year would look like, where we are, and then I think there's some really interesting kind of storylines that we've been chatting about that I think we can dive into. So when we do the forecast for the year, we usually do it in November, and so as we know, a lot can happen from the time that we run whatever we think the numbers are going to look like. And we try to work it out to try to figure out if unemployment does this or if interest rates do this. And we try to work through the numbers in a couple of ways to kind of see how it plays out. So what we ended up with at the end of last year, the forecast for 2026 is we thought sales growth would be about 4% higher in 26 than 25.
When
And
you say sales growth,
closed
does that
sales.
closed
Yeah,
units?
closed sales.
Okay, all right.
Would be about 4% higher than 2025.
But I think when that gets said, sometimes people assume appreciation with that
Price.
number.
Yeah.
Price.
Yeah.
So then when you run that and you try to figure out where you think the inventory is going to be,
Yeah.
we had price growth at around 2%. So the median sales price for 2026 would be about 2% higher than what it was for all of 2025.
Right.
So
And can I ask you, that's
Yeah.
the lowest that's been in
yeah,
5
so
years?
the last couple of years have been 4 years, and then you get into the craziness of the pandemic, and then
Right.
I think pre-pandemic we were at like 6 and 7%. So yeah, you're definitely seeing it kind of temper from where we were.
And so,
Yeah.
what are we year to date? Because,
Yeah.
in November, we were coming down, right? Like we had a good first 6 months, and then it came down from June until December. So I'm curious,
Well, we have
like,
a
how,
very seasonal pattern, and we
Correct.
in 25 was largely getting back to that pattern.
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it
I
was
would
agree.
really
Time we saw it, yeah.
upended until
Yeah.
basically 2025,
Right.
right? And so we're seeing that pattern much more kind of back to normal-ish, right? So if you look at where we are year to date through the first 6 months, closed sales are up 3.7% compared to that same time in 2025, and prices are up 1.6% compared to that same time in 2025.
say that again? Hold on, say that one more time.
So closed sales are up 3.7%.
Okay.
We thought they'd be around 4.
Okay.
And
So we're on track.
prices-
That's close enough within an error
That's
margin.
reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And prices are up 1.6% year to date, and we thought they'd be around 2.
Okay.
So not terribly far.
So in that instance, we're where you thought we should be.
We're
But
reasonably
is
where
the
we should be.
market
Yeah.
and all your other stats
Yeah.
that we've been talking about, is the market showing we're in good shape compared to last year, or are we slowing
Yeah.
down, or
So the interesting thing is when we did the forecast, we actually thought rates would be lower than where they are right now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't think anybody really foresaw
the
the war in Iran and
Yeah.
closing Strait of Hormuz and everything
you
else.
didn't predict that in
No,
November?
no, I did not have that in.
You know what's
in the
crazy,
model.
though, is with that,
That's exactly right.
it's
Yeah.
still within the margin of error. But like the other weird thing about it, because I want like you're looking at projections and you don't really know how it's going to work. You're just doing your best. I guarantee you didn't expect January to just come
January's
out. It was crazy where we were, but you didn't see it until.
Oh, as a market, as the entire marketplace though was a terrible January.
But what's
Closed
interesting,
sales.
but because they all probably pinned January to close February, because from what we saw,
right.
so
December was rough.
Yeah.
Showed up in January's closings. January's pending started to slowly kind of come
pick up,
back
right?
to life.
Because what
but then-
we
yeah.
saw here is spring market used to be April. And then over the past couple of years, it began
It's
to be
become
March.
February.
And then 2 years ago was February. And then this year was January.
Yeah, and then we had
And
the
that's
weird
really
snow
weird.
in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a blizzard.
Really, then throws timing off of a lot of things. So,
Right. And even then, like I listed a house like an idiot the day of the snowstorm coming, right? Like on a Thursday and the snowstorm's coming Friday, right?
Yeah, just getting ahead of it.
Yeah,
That's all right.
and I sold it that weekend. Makes no sense to me.
Well, it's
I'm
so
like,
funny.
wild,
I'm just
isn't
looking
it?
back. So February 3rd, we had the lowest actives for the whole year prior, and I wrote because of snow. So
Yeah.
February 3rd is when the snow happened, and then but they had 71 sell in the past 30 days, so that would have been all of January. And our average of sales in the summer is anywhere around 120-ish, but in March it was 76. So
So we're getting similar in January, February. We're getting the same numbers as like all the way to the end of March. It's just
yeah.
So you're talking
very
about the
steady.
seasonality,
Yeah.
and
March,
it's there.
Yeah,
But it's
steady.
pivoted month-wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
like I was talking to somebody about this. Is me going down a
It
rabbit
also
hole.
depends geographically too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Very, very different.
Yeah, because your stats, you're covering all 17,
All 17 counties,
I was telling somebody a couple of years ago that, because they're complaining about how the seasons we've like lost seasons. And I was like, we haven't lost seasons. Our months have never changed. The climate, like we still have winter.
Yeah.
It just goes further because it starts later, right? Like we still have spring. It just starts later and go, you know what I mean? We still have the same seasonality.
Sure.
So I think the housing market's done the same. Like we still have these peaks and valleys, just the months they're in have like rolled a little bit by like a month.
Kind of dulled a little. Yeah. So if it was a peak or if it was a lull,
It's alternating now.
It's not as sharp either way as it once was.
Yeah,
And so that was one of the other things that we talked about too, was with the buyers that we have nowadays. Like, you're still having kind of the traditional family structures that you see, but there's also a lot of empty nesters.
Yeah.
There's people without kids, people who live by themselves. And so I think that's also changed the importance of the calendar. I think it's still important, but is it as important as it was 10 or 12 years ago?
No, it's
Might be a
more
little
about when it's
different.
cold.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to move when it's
It's
cold.
more the weather now
Yeah.
than it is like trying to catch the school year, which I think is still an important thing, but
Yeah.
maybe less as it was 10 or 12 years ago.
And then I know our stat says the average first time home buyer is 38
40.
It was
or 40. I don't see that though.
Yeah.
Me neither.
I see a lot of 28-year-olds buying and a lot of 31-year-olds buying, and they tend to be young professionals, possibly without a child at that point or whatever. It doesn't super matter, but and they don't care either about, like
It's less important.
Yeah, it's just less important. So
They only buy when they find the good deal.
yeah. Or when, like, I think a lot of them, like, maybe wonder why the stat is off is because their parents help them buy and they're on title or something. And so maybe that skews the age.
So it's
I
a
don't
survey, and it covers the country.
know. Okay.
And I just wonder if
That makes
maybe
sense
the general
countrywide.
affordability here just maybe
Yeah,
allows
that's a good point. Yeah.
allows a little bit more kind of room for that buyer.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell my first-time home buyers, I congratulate them and tell them how proud I am of them because the average age is 40. And when I tell them that, they do feel really good. They're like, wow. But they are. My kids are 28 to 33 on average buying their first home all day long.
I always tell them what my neighbor used to tell me. He's like, well, if you own a house, you deserve it because now you have a to-do list that will never, ever end.
Now you have chores.
Yeah, now you got
They do need to learn
Now
that.
you
There
have
needs
what
to
we
be
will
some
call
housing
deferred maintenance.
education out there.
Yeah.
That's hard.
It is interesting though. And like, I love like what you get paid to do. Like, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of rabbit holes you just kind of like go down and ferret out or something or hear something because like there's just data you can chase data to prove almost or disprove anything. So it's almost like I don't know where you start and you stop
Try to
sometimes.
figure out what's important. And
Yeah.
sometimes you do come up with crazy ideas, but that's when you try to find other people and you're like, hey, I had this idea. And people are like, no, don't. Yeah, it's
Well,
not. Yeah.
speaking of which you had said, what is MIBOR getting ready to roll out for us in regards to stats?
Oh, so with the Market Insights tool, I think the next release should be at the end of August. It might be September, but there's going to be a handful of new metrics that you can track. One of them that we talked about that we're currently testing is we have the days on market, but the other way to look at it is looking at the age of the inventory. How long has the active inventory been on the market? So that's one of the things that I think would be really helpful in kind of fleshing out the full story of kind of the pace of the marketplace.
We started doing that because starting last year, it became very evident you either sell or you sit, right? And
There's
so,
two
like,
we call it
yeah.
constantly, two markets.
Right.
You sell or you sit. And a good thing for that stat to be available for everybody if they don't pull it like we do is for when you're getting ready to talk to somebody about listing their home, is talk to them about you can be here or you can be here. Do you want to be the one that sits here or doesn't sit here? And then, you guys were able to help me find the MIBOR market insights for houses that have set on the market, how many times they've had a price drop.
Price change.
And to be able to show that to the sellers too is you can be those actives that are on the market for 60 to 90 days, but look at those houses that are the homes that are 60 to 90 days on market, how many price drops they've had. And to keep you from being Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you need to be over here. So, but
That's the interesting thing though. So like we noticed last year, price promise you showings, offers, none of that stuff. And so I hope we don't do that this year, because that's what ends up happening is people start cascading, and there's just like the summer buyer has become like what I was telling you is they're just the most discerning consumer. And it's really kind of neat. And we as agents and sellers have not acclimated to that buyer, and we are trying to throw old tricks at it to make it work. And it like, oh, let's do a price drop, or let's do this, or let's do that. Like, and the reality is like, no, let's be patient, because we're priced correctly. And like, I think there's this adage with agents of like, if you haven't sold, it's because of the price. And I just wholly disagree with that. I think you haven't sold, you could be overpriced. I don't want to discount that whatsoever. Like that's always but if you are priced correctly and you've done your research on it, you just haven't gotten to the buyer yet because of the buyer pool is smaller. And we started chasing for that buyer that didn't even exist. Gotcha. And then the price just started falling and falling. And like, so like us in particular, my team, we have multiple houses that had been on the market like 21 days. And we ended up in multiple offer scenarios on multiple properties this past week, which made no sense because it was 170 degrees.
The skies opened up and the buyers came out.
You have that kind of an issue.
It's like
because
selling in the Sahara all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, I've had that happen too, though, is the one thing I try to tell my buyers is when they're trying to look for houses and the search is going on, I say, if you see a house that you want to see, just hit the market for today, we need to see it immediately. And that urgency is still there because it may sell in 4 days. But the buyers also need to understand the urgency of the house being on the market for 30 days, because how many buyers are discerning and watching and seeing and still seeing what's out there, but they're still pulling back and looking at 123 Main Street. And the second they hear they got an offer, those buyers come back and go, we've got to make an offer now. So that's why it happens.
Because they were like hoping for a price drop.
Right, it didn't happen, and now they have to make an offer. But you had a stat too of where are we on list to sale ratio? What are you seeing there?
So as of June, we were at 98.7%.
Over 100% of the price points, right?
Right.
Is there any differences in the different price
when
points?
When you look at price point, the upper end of the prices is definitely much more competitive. And is that something that you're also
historically the past 2 years?
Yeah.
The last 2 years has been super competitive.
Luxury market's done really well, which also makes sense because, you know, everybody wants to talk about like cash is king and all this other stuff. Right. And, you know, I kind of don't believe in that to a certain extent because it all clears the bank the same. But it's actually correct when interest rates are high, cash is king, right? And so it makes sense that the higher price point when interest rates are a little bit higher, that the higher price points are doing better, quite honestly. Right.
What's the list to sale ratio on the higher price points?
So from the original listing price, you're looking at about 98% on those properties that are above $500,000.
And that's on the original. That's not the current list when it pins.
Is there a way to do that? That's the stat I would like to say.
Market Insights as well. So you can do both. So you can do the most previous list or what was put in
the original. The original versus list.
You can see both of them.
I do have a curiosity of at what point does what we consider luxury change here locally?
Depends on geography too, right? I mean,
because like what we
luxury in Carmel may be something different than what we consider.
In Morgan County or
Whitestown or something like that.
Choose a place,
Because well, like I can remember when I first got sober and I first got into real estate and all this stuff, and I can remember like I would joke about like people up here what they consider luxury, and then I went down to my buddy down in Miami, and I'm like, yo, like that stuff ain't luxury down here. Like you don't even get to see the water, right?
Yeah.
But
that's the same in New York. When I went to New York, they were their luxury. They're talking $50 million on these houses, and I'm telling them, our luxury market starts at like 7 in Carmel. That's what they say. $750, and they're just laughing like that's one bedroom.
Well, but because of COVID, like that has gone up, and so has the luxury dollar amount gone up to more like 1.1 here locally? Like, I don't know. And I don't really care. I mean, you see agents like market around it, and obviously you have, sellers who want to market as luxury and all of that stuff. But like, I think we all know these days, like you can go buy a basic production house for $1.1 million in you know what I mean, in a certain neighborhood. And I don't know, like, I don't want to dismiss this because, like, you know, I don't live in that house. So, like, I don't see that as luxury because it's not, like, semi-custom or... Does that make sense? Like, that makes more sense to me.
So you're talking product type against actual price point.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
and we assign it based on price point.
Yeah.
And, like, but it's very odd because I do see that stuff kind of pushed out, and I'm kind of like, who really cares? But I do know that there are certain agents and there are certain consumers who care. And I know if I was going to go buy a house of that value, I would suddenly give a shit. You know, I mean, like,
Well, the
really
price
where the
point-
art of what you do comes in.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you can throw the numbers out, but if it doesn't mean what you think it means, or if it doesn't translate to the consumer in the way that it should, and that's what you all do so really beautifully, is just translating that number into what makes sense for them to make the most informed
for the feeling
choices.
of it, yeah.
Well, it's just really what can they afford, and what they can afford. Does it offer what they're looking for?
But also understanding what that actually means for the marketplace that you're in, because maybe you want to be priced just below what is considered luxury.
Yeah, because there's certain
Maybe
people...
you want to be just above, like, it. Yeah, I mean, it really depends
It all
on the
matters.
product.
It's all
Yeah.
mindset, because there's certain people who don't want to be seen as luxury, right? Because of the stigma attached to it. And there's certain people who want to be seen as luxury because of the perks associated
And to
with
each
it.
their own, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And like,
absolutely.
I have to know who I'm dealing with to be able to do that, right? And so, to your point, like, I mean, we were talking, like, if you're in Broad Ripple, for example, it is much harder to sell something as luxury than it is in Arden or Williams Creek or Meridian Kessler. It like, all of a sudden, if you're not listing it as that,
Yeah.
then you have an issue,
very
right?
different.
Because Meridian Kessler goes all the way down to 38th Street, but I don't think everybody would assume that's luxury. But I've sold plenty of stuff that's
Right.
all the way down there, you know. And it's just interesting because how do you quantify that within the data and all of this other stuff? Because, you know, there are certain areas that I would argue, based on how you have that broken down, as luxury
Sure.
in those areas, and they're like underperforming, ironically,
Yeah.
you know.
I think the thing that you can still see, though, is that there's definitely a level on the income scale
That is less
that
effective.
is performing
Yeah.
much better than the rest of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so however you really define that, if you start at $500,000, if you start at 7, whatever it is,
Doesn't matter.
It's
Yeah.
still performing better, right? And
We
even if you
also-
look at the days to pending, the days to contract,
Oh my
if
gosh.
you're above $500,000, you're anywhere from 12 days to 5 days.
Yeah.
Whereas below that, you're closer to 20,
Yeah,
21
Which is crazy.
And
Like,
that's
a
just so
$200,000 house should be like
out the door.
bread and butter.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
But they're not being taken care of.
They aren't.
And
They're
that's the
shit.
one thing is the difference in the quality of the home. Like you said, when you're looking at these prices that they're $700 this year, those houses were $400 to $450 3 years ago, or 4 years ago. So we're talking about production homes or whatever. The homes that we called production or not as, you know, a lot of amenities into it like that are now the $700,000 homes that still are the ones that were built for $350. I mean, my house in the neighborhood we lived in, we bought for $350, and it's worth, again, I don't live there anymore, but it's worth like $7 now. But that house was $350 when we bought it, and it's just a totally different house. So if you look at a $700,000 house in the brains of people who have lived in or been in the business long enough, it's like, well, this house is still the set $350,000 house in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
there's
ultimately, the
it's
market
how much
decided
it-
it's, yeah.
It's
Yeah, the
not.
market
Yeah,
decided.
I know, and that's just hard because also in the same price point of new first-time home buyers looking at $300,000, those houses were $150 to $100, and you know.
Well, that's where I really struggle with our industry, is because people want to come in and they'll be like, I don't think this will appraise. Cool. It's up to the appraiser. Like, I have seen in this market in particular, more agents hurt their clients than I've ever seen before, because they want to, like, how did you come up with that price? I threw a dart at a dartboard. What do you think, man? I spent time comping the house. You can justify your price. I can justify
Well, how
my
about
price.
when you're
Like,
with
it is
some
what it
agent
is.
who does that to you, calls you and go, "Where'd you come up? I want to see your comps."
Well, so my problem with that is, like, they're hurting. Like, there's an argument to say they're protecting their clients because they're not overpaying. Like, it's in the contract you won't overpay for it unless you knowingly do it because of the appraisal in the first place, right? So like it just doesn't make sense. And I see agents who struggle with this stuff end up hurting their clients. That's just my personal opinion on it, mainly because I've dealt with it. But
do you see in clients that you work with or your teams work with, are you seeing the under 500K price point, those consumers being much more sensitive to the interest rate, kind of where we are now?
No, I see them being much more, it all plays together.
Yeah.
But they are way more sensitive to the inspection.
Inspections.
Because they don't
so much
care
money.
about the
Right,
monthly.
right.
It's the fix. It's like
It's what's coming down the.
their monthly works. They're not liquid, if that makes
Right.
sense. And so I would say that price
There's
range,
big out-of-pocket expenses
massive
coming up.
inspection.
And that's what I'm
problems.
seeing or thinking we're seeing in the back on markets that we're seeing, which we did the stats for us today, which is now going to include a back on market, price drops and all that. But the back on markets, what do we think? 80% are inspection issues because buyers who are spending more than they want to, also paying more in an interest rate than they want to, but they
Right.
want to buy a house, are sure as heck not going to buy a house that they're going to have to turn around and put $20,000-$30,000 into it because the seller didn't take care of the house. So they're like, fine, we're out. And the sellers are like, fine, I'm not selling it to you because I'm not going to do anything. And that's
We
where
had
we're
5 showings when we were taking that
we're
offer.
we're
we
butting
doing?
heads with inspections right now.
Yeah,
And
we
I
are.
think that's where we're seeing so many back on markets, the most I've ever seen in a long time.
And I think it is because it's the same. Like this is why, like when we talk, it's like this. Your idea of that the dollar amount is affecting it. Yes, it's just coming out in a different way.
different,
Yeah, and and with our business, like when you read what a major defect is, I don't care. It's gray. It is a gray area. It is so vague that I could make an argument for dang near anything, because it's like future marketability and of the house. And
It's future deterioration too. So I'm in this process right now.
like a roof you could argue about all day.
Well, the
like-
inspection process, like they say, to look for major defects. Well, when they talk about rotting wood is, the one piece of trim needs to be taken care of. Well, if it's over the door where the water's coming into the house,
Yeah, there's something
that
wrong.
is a major defect. And other
Right.
agents will go, it's just rotting wood. You just need to paint it, or you just need to take,
Well,
whatever.
not just
I'm
that. Like, let's say
need
you
to
throw
caulk it.
in paint to match. Well,
Yeah.
to paint an exterior of a house is about $9,000.
Right.
Like
It's the one little thing you have to think, what does that cause down the road monetarily or
Yeah.
detriment to the house? So
I
know
wish it
we're-
was more specific, but I'm glad it isn't. But it's leaving a lot of wiggle room
to get out
to
of
get
the
in
deal.
and out of contracts.
Gotcha.
And so just
Yeah.
a lot of stuff has been happening with inspections. I've seen some low appraisals. I've seen a lot of cold feet a weekend. I've just seen a lot of interesting kind of some of the things that I've seen fall apart. CCRs, which I don't tend to see that happen very often.
Insurance claim that how many days you put for your insurance.
Oh yeah.
That
One
has
I-
become more important.
Yeah.
People need to pay attention that your insurance has there's a reason that is
Lenders
in that contract.
on condos. Now, we dealt with one that fell apart. A condo complex didn't have 10% reserves, and so which was effective like January 1st as like a new rule. And now all of a sudden, like the buyer had to come up with additional cash to close to offset the risk assessment, is what we'll call it,
Yeah.
of your down payment, because there wasn't sufficient cash reserves in the condo, and there was still a ton of money. Like they want 10%, and it was at like 8.5%, and they're like, "No, you got to bridge the gap of the risk assessment here, and like you have to go now from 5% down to 10% down," and it killed the deal. And like that's kind of effective January 1. That like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have these new kind of parameters with condos, and it was
And
news
that's
to
where they-
us, I mean, I
But
dealt with it.
the agents that know these kind of things are the ones that are on day one of the pending. Get me that information.
Yeah.
Knowing you need to know that.
Oh, it was written in the contract. And I was like, that's different. It ended up being a thing.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
so what else do you want to show us
So
today?
I was kind of joking around with a colleague today. If you had to sum up the market as of June into just a couple of stats. So in June, the year-over-year increase in the median sales price was only 1.5%. But we're still at a new all-time high
Of sales price.
on the median sales price. So in June it was
Interesting.
$330,000, and the previous was like $325,000.
So that's a hard thing to deal with, though, because like when you say it, it sounds like, hey, this house that I bought a year ago is now worth this. But what it really is it's the house that didn't sell 10 years ago is now on the market. You know, I mean, it's still a lot of like the boomers kind of coming off of properties that have gone from the 350s to the 700s. And it's not this like weird year over year. It's we're getting inventory that hasn't been available that is desirable that I think causes this price increase. Does that make sense? It's not like the same house sold the next year for 1.5% higher.
You're kind of running into this where if you're looking, especially if you're looking to enter into the marketplace, it's at the highest price generally that it's ever been, but you're starting to see the price appreciations really temper this year.
Yeah.
More inventory is out there than we've had in a long time. And it's just,
Do you have that stat? How much more inventory we have? Percentages?
if
Come
you
on,
think
Master.
back to,
Master of
if you think
stats.
back to like
Wizard.
2018, 2017, it wouldn't be crazy to see like 7,000 houses on the market,
Yeah.
you know, and that was fine. We were still at like 2.5% a month of 2.5 months of the
inventory.
inventory. Like it really was, like it was still pretty tight. Today we're sitting at about 6,200 homes. We're still sitting at about 1.9%, 1.9 months of supply.
How much
Sorry,
of that
we
is
got-
new construction?
Not as much as you think. It's within
Really?
historical norms. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because Westfield is always so heavy and so
it's
twice
probably
down.
geographically
It's
disproportionate,
correct.
but yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, yeah, as a region, though, we're
Because you're
within our
talking
norms.
17, we're always talking a lot of
Exactly.
Hamilton County and Boone
Exactly.
County.
Yeah, but like what Westfield is doing right now is what Fishers did a decade ago. You know what I mean? And now it's just resale. You know what I mean? Like, because none of that stuff existed in Fishers. Like, I remember when 146 was a 2-lane road. You know what I mean?
Right.
You remember when it was a dirt road. But like, I don't know, man. It's,
I actually lived on it when it was 2 lanes. I'll say that our house was one house off of 146th Street. And I told my husband at that time, I said, guess what I just heard? 146th Street's becoming 4 lanes. We need
Yeah.
to move now. And it wasn't going to happen for like a year and a half, but we put our house on the market immediately because I knew our house was just going to tank right after that. But there are people who literally, I had a phone call this morning when people want to buy them. Road noise doesn't bother us. Major roads don't bother us. There's, every house that's sitting out there does sell, but those houses I think should just take a price hit, and they really don't.
There's a lot of
It's
things that have
crazy.
also cropped up around it, though. There's a lot of stores and
Yeah.
places to
Yeah.
shop and things to do, and
Well,
and
that corridor by River Road is crazy right
yeah.
now.
So for some, it could be the noise is kind of the thing that they want to avoid.
Or they're from
but
New York City.
but for other people, being closer to amenities is
Yeah.
also kind of a desire. Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
that's what's interesting about it is like the stats are amazing, but like the one thing it can't do is dial in one particular house and human behavior. Like that's just it. Human behavior is just the outlier.
when
on
I
all of it.
very first started, there's an agent who was just in this office who I just saw, told me, they said, Brad, every transaction is its own individual story.
Yeah.
I mean, collectively, they all tell a general story, but everyone is very, very different.
Well, and the common comment, like every time I would have somebody start working for me as a transaction coordinator, is the first thing I say is no deal will ever be the same.
Yeah.
They never will be, never can be. The different humans involved, there's different agents involved, buyers, sellers, houses, inspection issues. There's no way they could ever duplicate
And just
themselves.
general timing, too. Interest rates, macro environment,
Yeah.
what's,
But I mean, all we need is, the reason we do the podcast is, I need a pulse. I need to know, and I need other agents to not know they're crazy based on what they feel, or if they're not feeling it, to know like this is coming, or like I don't want to say they're in a vacuum right now, and like this is what, like, don't be surprised when it feels this way,
Right.
because it's like, what do we call the current market? And like I would say cautiously optimistic. Like it's been good all of January. We've had a down June that is on par with last year as well. And then we had an uptick in particular of showings, which is always a great indicator of like showings on stale houses. And I don't mean like, oh, I got one, like I get 6, like, and so it's like, I feel really encouraged rolling out into the rest of July that we're in a good market. And June just sucks because you have Memorial Day, you have graduation parties, you have vacations, usually 1 of 2 weeks, then you have Father's Day, and you're just 4 weeks gone, right?
And I think the other thing too is it's not all one thing all at once. So
it isn't.
It's been interesting watching, just even at the county scale. Counties will have a slow month, and this county will have a really good month, and then they almost flip. And so it's just a constant kind of, 1 month is slow, the next month really picks up. 1 month is slow, it really picks up. If you look at June, pending sales were up almost 14% year over year.
The pendings. That's
Pending
crazy.
sales were up 14% in June for
Wow.
the entire.
But that makes sense to me because
the
that's
region.
how bad last year was coming in out of May. Like the market just dropped.
And that's the other thing too, is we have to remember where we're coming out of.
Yeah, like
because
what did last year
as,
look like?
But
Yeah.
as tough as 25 was, 24 was even worse.
Yeah.
And
See,
so
I don't
it's-
remember 24
Well,
that
that's
way,
good.
but-
It's a good thing. 24
Move
was not a
forward,
great
move
year
forward.
for. Yeah. And 25 improved.
Yeah.
And 26 is just an improvement off of 25.
14%.
I wouldn't
though.
say the
That's
market
crazy.
has overperformed, but it's certainly outperformed what I expected it to
Yeah.
do.
But with that being said, we're
Especially
not super
given all the
increasing.
weirdness that we've had this year.
Yeah.
Like all the external things kind of going on, all the things beyond our control. And I think too, just it's the vibe, but it's the general. You can sense a general anxiety in a lot of people.
Yes.
And but it doesn't always translate on a one-to-one in terms of what people actually do with their money or do with their resources and their time. So
Yeah.
that's also kind of an important thing to be careful to decouple a little bit. Is it's a vibe and it's there, but it's not always driving how people behave. Right?
It isn't. And I think, like as we talk about that, like what I forget is, we were rolling into an election year 2 years ago, and then all the tariffs came out last year,
At the
last
beginning
year.
of this, yeah.
Right. And so like all of these things were happening, like regardless of what you believe, one side or the other, just caused a general of like, well, let's see how this plays out. Right. Like it could be good, it could be bad. Like I don't really care where you lie. Like, because if people think it's going to be bad, there's the other side that thinks it's going to be good.
Sure.
And so like it just nulls itself out. Right. But like there was this sense of like wait and see. Mm-hmm. And to your point, like I still think that exists, but I think people are in a place now of like, we're waiting and seeing, but we're still moving forward.
Right.
And I feel like previously we had been like, we're waiting and seeing,
not
and
paralyzed.
then we'll decide. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So which is crazy because like I know when you're talking about 2024 was bad, like I remember like doing really, really well, and the rates were like 7%. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And that's why I was really surprised. I noticed last year because I was like, rates are like a point lower, and it feels worse.
Well, I think, too, the other thing happened when Trump got in, everybody was talking about, the rates are going to come down, because he was saying that, and a lot of people were saying that. And so everybody's
like, let's wait till they come down.
They're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and now everybody's like, well, we don't need to wait anymore because it's not going to happen. And so they just accept that wherever we are in the sixes somewhere.
Yeah.
We're not going to hit the fives. Hopefully don't hit the 7. So you're in a position now as a buyer to say, well, this is where we are. Do you want to move or not?
You evaluate your own.
Yeah. Do you want to buy or
spot as
not?
opposed to-
It is what it is, and we don't have any waiting to see right now of a lot of things. I mean,
That's why I
some
think new
things-
construction is doing so well, because they're in the 3.9s, 4s, and so people know like that is going to be our best bet. If monthly payment is the pain point, like you're not going to beat new construction. You're just
No,
not.
you can't, and that's why people can't sell if their house is under 5 years of age.
Because you're competing against
Most of
that.
the sellers that I've had like that, I tell them they need to match what the buyers are doing. You have to give at least a 1% or something back to the seller or the buyers because they will pick something else.
So what do you think for the rest of the year? Do you have any? Let's put your wizard hat back on.
Yeah, so that's where it's going to get really interesting is because
I don't know how to
Let's
say
just stop
that.
there.
Yeah, what does that mean?
we have
You're like, it's going to be good or it's going to be bad.
coin flip. Even
Let's
though
make a
rates have
prediction
come
right
up,
now.
so the interest rates have come up this year. We started in January. We were at like
6.1. Yeah,
we were very, very.
There were some
very
people with
close to
5.9s.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah. And even at the beginning of the year, they had talked about, the GSEs were going to buy $200 billion worth of MBS, and that was going to, and that all kind of got like instantly priced in. So I really, really thought if nothing major had happened, we would have stayed somewhere around 6.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now we're 6.5-ish, 6.4, 6.5, somewhere in that ballpark, which is still lower than we were last year.
Right.
But everything's relative, right? So I don't know how human behavior works the rest of this year. If you get to 6.5 and it starts taking out tranches of potential buyers with every, small increase here from now. Yeah. So, and it doesn't, I think we can all try to read what's going to go down with the Fed and all that. And I think we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think largely, my guess is that that's going to be their policy too, is wait and see.
Yeah, because I think everybody anticipated them dropping it last, and
there were 2 cuts, and then there was 1 cut, and now there's talk of a 1 hike, and now so I think they're probably more on the wait and see, which means we're more kind of status quo through the rest of the year, which could still put us in the 6.4-ish range, which is not bad. If we are 6.5 and above, I think it's a different story, though. I don't think it affects all the buyers, but it definitely, especially when you're talking that 300,000 under, a little bit more kind of pressure on that side of it.
Well, and I think like people acclimate. So I do, although not a fan of the war.
Not trying to be the rain cloud here.
No,
this is just
but
my thinking through the rest of the year.
And not to get political, because I'm not trying to, but I'm not a fan of the war, but I also know we've acclimated to it, and it's okay, and it also has a shelf life. This is not This is not a GWAT situation where we're about to be 20 years in a war, in my personal opinion. And so I think that we are stabilized through the gas prices and all this other stuff, and although it may negatively affect, we will also come out, right?
Yes.
And so it's kind of I just don't know when that's going to happen.
It's that timing of it,
right? And so things are good and will get better.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we have a slight dip before then. That's kind of how it feels to me.
Yeah, I still think we probably end up around the 4% growth in terms of sales, and we probably still end up around the 2% in terms of price appreciation for the year.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
And then
It's better than the alternative of negatives.
Right.
Because when we talk about historically your appreciation value, everything we've gone through in the past 5 years, it will end up at the historical percentage, right? Because we had the increase and then we have the drop, and that's how it works.
There's a reversion to mean kind of that goes on. The other thing too is, I should figure out what I was just going to say.
Well, if you think about it, right? While you try to remember what you were talking about, we're gonna when we talk about home ownership and it being, the American dream and the path towards wealth, it has always been implied over time.
Right.
And that's what gets lost sometimes. It's this is a long-term play, not a 3-year play, right? And so I just think
you are locking in your cost to live while hopefully your income continues to go up through the course of the ownership.
And then other people will sell during that time, which will, and then as a result, you slowly increase as well, right?
So what I was going to say is the reason why I think we still end up at 4 on closed sales and 2 on price is you're looking at the year over year and where we were in 2025. Mm-hmm. And I think even though interest rates have come up, we're still marginally better than where we were then.
Yeah.
So I think it still brings more buyers, more consumers into the pool than we had last year. So
I agree with that. And I think people are just kind of used to their cost of living now. Last year, the cost of living changed, and now people just acclimate.
Or they've already left the market.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that couldn't acclimate, they're gone, and now we're just picking up the people that are ready to go this time around, which is constant. It's a constant revolving door of who's going to be in the. Any other stats that you wanted to hit us with that you thought were interesting or important?
The only other thing, too, I would say on the inventory, and I've kind of brought this up before, is that we look at the level of the inventory and you think it's kind of closer to where we were in 2018, and you think like we're kind of back. But then you realize, and we were kind of joking around about this, you know, you have Gen Zs are coming into their adulthood, and millennials are a really big cohort too.
So what's our growth, our population growth?
We've actually had pretty decent growth in the Indy region. We've had decent inward migration, people coming from other places. And so there's more potential demand out there now than there was in 2018 and 2019. So the inventory levels are relative to what your pool of buyers are, right?
So even though we're close, it's still low.
I look to the months of supply because how quickly is the market able to absorb that, right? And when I came in 2018, I remember people telling me that we always looked at 5 to 7 months as being a balanced marketplace. I mean, could you imagine get back to 3 months now? I mean, it's, you know, so we're
starting to see the average days on market ticking up. We're not. What is
the
it?
average
what are you
is,
seeing
but
now?
the median's still pretty low.
Still pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, in Fisher's, my median's 13.
Right.
And in Noblesville, it's 23.
2
now the average
weeks.
is like around a month, a little bit over a month. But yeah, I mean.
But that's not even historically out of, you know, that's not even out of the norms historically.
Dude, when we first got to these numbers 5 years ago, we were like, this is insane. And now we're like, what's wrong?
Right. Yeah, it's just, it depends which side of the hill you're coming from, right? So I would say, one, that inventory still needs to improve in a lot of places throughout the Indy region. The other thing, too, is we still struggle with getting a variety of product types. I mean, we're still essentially all competing over the same product types, regardless if we need that actual product or not. So one of the things that is we still want to encourage communities to look at being able to add more variety of product types in and have the appropriate mixes. And
we had the people on for the Village of Westfield, which was a new product type for a co-op, and that was really neat to hear about. I think like when you were talking about that, we don't have, and I've seen more demand for 2-bedroom houses. And like historically, you're like, shit, I got a 2-bedroom house, I gotta sell. Like, well, I'm screwed, right? But like, I actually have.
There's a lot more buyers for that now.
And not just that, I have young buyers for it, and old buyers for it. It's
That's
really,
exactly
really
right.
interesting. And
you have two of the largest population cohorts
looking for
the same thing,
and there's not many.
And we still.
I have one going
Don't
on
do
the
a good job of
market
that.
this week, and I sold one, just closed on one about 2 weeks ago. We had multiple offers on it, and it went over list by a bit. Yeah. And it was a 2-bedroom, and like you're saying, 2017 or something,
house,
I'd be going, oh shit, how am I going to sell this?
Right.
And now that's
because the demographics have really changed a lot over the last 8 years.
They
I
have.
mean, it's really shaped things.
Yeah, and I don't know how to create that. You know, like I feel like Indy has done a lot to attract different employers, and you know, like we kind of want to be this tech hub, but yet we also have this massive logistical situation where you can ship out of here and all this other stuff, and the cost of living is low. But we have not changed a lot of the product we offer, ironically enough. You know, we don't have a lot of actually, in the past 5 years, I've seen a lot of construction of condos on the north side. I don't see a ton of construction of condos on the south side, if that makes sense. I do see a lot of patio homes and all of that stuff, but
the paired housing is interesting, how much that's coming along.
Yeah, but the co-op thing was super cool. Like that was, I promise, as soon as this is done in Westfield, there'll be one in Bargersville.
And that's kind of what happens too. Is usually the first one is definitely the most challenging, and we see this every year in our community preference stuff. So we do a community preference survey every 4 years, and the places that have the most of kind of the mixed product types, the preferences for those are just higher.
Yeah.
And it's just, you get to see it. You get to see how it looks. You experience it. And then a lot of times, too, it's coupled with other things that you would want to go do or be a part of. So there's coffee shops or breweries or, shops or whatever else. There's walkability mixed in. Mm-hmm. And while it's not for everyone to buy, the preferences of having them in the community is just higher because you kind of see those other things that it comes with. And it also helps out too with, if you think about all the infrastructure that kind of goes in, it generally brings up the quality of the infrastructure as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go beyond just the actual product type.
There's a neighborhood over in, Whitestown, right? Over here by Zionsville.
Off the interstate, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And I want to say it's a D.R. Horton community. I'm almost positive it was. And they had this idea of step up, step down. Like, basically, you could live for 40 years in this community and never leave, because you could go from an apartment to a condo to a single family to a 2-story and then back down into
all
a patio.
The same
patio home. You could stay there your whole life. Yeah. And I think it was the first community I've ever seen that did all the way from top to bottom in like your entire life cycle. Now, this sounds horrible to live in the same place my entire life, but the idea that they offered literally every housing type in one community.
Talked about multifamily, so like grandma could live with a family as well.
Yeah, or in the same neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. So it was kind of like, or the kid moving out to go to college or, whatever, if they're going to work here, they could have their apartment still be my mom and dad, and then grandma's across the street. So
when's the last time you dealt with buyers until the past couple of years who wanted multiple primary suites?
That's huge right now.
Yeah.
That is huge, really. And there is, Magnolia Ridge has a product.
And it's not just for like because grandma's moving in.
It could look very different.
Yeah, it's because like, hey, I'm tired of sleeping in the same room. Like, we're married, but like he's got sleep apnea and snores like it's the craziest reasons.
2 primary suites is huge, and that's because of the aging population too. But also, if a kid needs to stay home, I'm going to say if they're autistic or they have something like that, they're going to have to be a special needs person staying in the house. That is not to be found. That is a whole product that would be great. But anything else before we end up today that you want to say? Because I know you always have so much information.
Yeah, so the other thing I would say is just remember that the market is getting back to more seasonal patterns. Mm-hmm. June, it really kind of trades off each year. Sometimes June's the peak, sometimes it's July. But just remember that, as we get through June and July, we'll start kind of cooling off into the fall. But that could also present a lot of opportunities for people. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing. And sometimes it gives the market the ability to reset and to see where we are.
I almost think like October is the best time to buy. September, if you're a buyer. I really do. Just because like it's still nice out as long as you're staying within. Like if like for me, I'd have to stay within a school. I can beat up all the sellers who panicked that they didn't sell, and I can get great houses that there's nothing wrong with. I mean, I can't tell you the phone calls I get. And people are like, "What's wrong with the house?" I was like, "Literally nothing. Just come buy it." I have no idea why this house is still on the market. No clue. And really, I do. It's because the stats say it should be. Yeah. The stats say it should be on the market 30 days because that's
at least, some of them are even higher than that. But I'll really quickly do our stats for Carmel. 36 hit the market in the past week. That was July 4th week. I couldn't believe how many houses I saw hit July 3rd, July 4th. That I wouldn't put a listing up that time, but we had 36 this past week hit the market. 13 of those pended, like you said. There were selling and buying in the 108 degree. I saw 112 on my car one day. 32 total pended, so we had almost all the inventory disappear. Average days on market was 27 and the median was 10, so we're at a 1 month inventory. 152 sold in the past 30 days with average days of 20 and median 5. So average days on market and median is going up on the actual time on market. Westfield, I'm going to get back to this. So back on markets in Carmel in the past 7 days, there were 8. There were 25 new homes that they show that, 22 homes that they show had a price drop. So we're starting to look at that again, just out of curiosity, and 11 expired. So the expireds is going up and up and up because I remember when I first started, I did expireds. But I haven't even thought about doing them. First of all, being on referral mostly, but there's nothing to call on any. But now they're back.
Well, and I would be curious to look at that when it expired. How long was the contract and when did it go on market? Because that means they probably listed in December, which was, you know what I mean? And then by January, it's like, what's wrong with it? And then it's set and it was, you know, I don't know.
Well, and that's very true because it used to be a 6-month listing contract was kind of the average, but who knows what everybody's doing now.
Yeah, I don't know what people are doing.
Maybe they're saying 2 or 3 because that's what they think it should have sold, and that's the sellers. Well, I'm not giving you a 6-month, which, you know, whatever. Westfield 24 hit the market, only 7 pended, but a total of 24, so we got 0 inventory there. The average days on market for the pendings was 40. And the median was 18. 179 have sold in the past 30 days. Their average days on market was 38, and median was 9. So the median doubled. And then so expired 6 in Westfield. Price dropped 22. Zionsville 9 hit the market. Only 2 pended, but a total of 13. So had negative inventory. Average days on market for those 45, and the median 18. So a month and a half for the sales. 69 all sold in past 30 days. 11 was the average days for the past 30, but the 45 average for the past 7. So Zionsville ticked up. Price drops only 3 in Zionsville and expires only 3.
Yeah, I mean, mine was pretty similar. Fishers, I had 31 go on the market, 25 of them are still active, so 6 pended within a week, 32 actually sold, so I lost some inventory. I'm at like 240. Let's see what I was last week real quick. 253. So like we ate up some inventory, mainly because I think we were off by a day when we did the stats last time. But Noblesville, I had 26 go on the market, 20 of them stayed active, so 6 pended, but I had 42 penned in Noblesville. And
last
so
week
I had 42 penned. I have 201 on the market. Average days on market in Fishers is 31 with the median of 13, and average in Noblesville is 34 with a median of 23. But if I look at the actives, like we were talking about, like what if you're an active house, age of inventory, in Fishers it's 58, and in Noblesville it's 68. Which is like, you know, as soon as one of
the average you said?
That's the average for the actives, right? Which is almost double what it takes to pend, right? So, and then when you look at like what the median is versus like the average days on market, it's almost double again. So it just tracks, you know, like all the numbers are like basically double of each other to a certain extent. And it's because, you know, when something is, you either sell right away or you're going to sit for the average days, or actually I would say you either sell in 2 weeks or 2 months, and that's how you get to the median in the middle. That's actually the better representation of that, right? Because how else do you get to the middle? So you'd have to sell in 2 weeks, or you sell in 60 days. That's the reality of it. So, but I don't know, like that's the fun stuff that we get to do and we get to talk about, and it's like, you know, I can tell you, I can tell you a number, but the number means nothing without the story, right? And so that's the cool part about it. So, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
Brad Coffing at MIBOR.com is the easiest way.
That's the easiest way?
My phone rings and it's always some weird spam.
Spam? Yeah.
I will call you back if you leave me a message, but yeah.
I love how now it doesn't just say, it says potential spam.
It's potential.
Yeah, like I'm potentially
Everything's
not
potentially
answering.
spam.
Yeah.
With the right attitude.
I love it. I'm Kyle Morris with Morris Property Group and FC Tucker. My number is 317-649-5122.
I'm Shelly Walters with the Shelly Walters Realty Group, and my phone number is 317-201-2601.